Pigweed here. Today we review an IPA and ask, are we living in a digital panopticon? All right. Fancy meeting you here.
All right. How
Good
about some
evening.
beer and conversation?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, okay.
So what are we drinking?
We're drinking an IPA.
Oh, all right. Anything special about it?
Well, not particularly.
All right.
We'll get
find
into
out.
that. Yeah.
We'll
Okay.
find out.
So what's on your mind?
This Ben Franklin quote.
Yeah.
I mean, this will be relevant to the topic at hand,
Okay.
and I think we all know it. The man who would give up freedom for security deserves neither.
Okay. You sure those words mean what you think they mean?
Not really.
No?
And I'll drink to that.
And I'm not sure that he said it, but
It's clear. We'll clear all that
we'll
out.
clear all that up. Okay, but first let's drink this beer. So this
Yeah.
is from Stone Brewery.
Yeah.
They're a great brewery.
Yeah.
And this is called their Delicious IPA. 7.7%, which is a little strong for an IPA.
Yeah, I'm over the hazies.
Yeah.
I think this is what I like
Nice and clear.
a West Coast IPA to look like.
Yeah.
They're Westies.
I am pretty tired of the hazies. I mean, there are so many hazy IPAs. It's like, okay, I've had that. I'm done with that.
Filter your beer for crying out
Did you
loud.
see that commercial came out a while ago? It was like a commercial for Heineken. And it had some guys drinking, here's your coconut spice,
Yeah, right,
whatever.
yeah.
And they said, when you're done fooling around,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a pretty good pitch, though.
it is a pretty good pitch. And I like craft beer and I like the different styles. But when I go in and I look at all the left-handed pumpkin, coconut, mango,
Kiwi
whatever.
flavor.
Yeah, I was like, come on, guys. Can we just stick to regular styles? I like the craft beers. I like the styles.
I
but
do too.
yeah, it does get a little silly.
And if you're looking for somebody who knows their way around an IPA, you
Yeah.
cannot go wrong with Stone.
No,
That's
Stone
for sure. And this is delicious. It's 7.7. They have a series that's just called Drink By.
Yeah.
And they put a date on it because they don't want you drinking beer that's older than a month, really. Yeah. And this is. It's a couple of months old. This is on the tail end of what you would drink
For a fresh IPA.
Of what they would want
yeah.
you to drink, because you drink a 6-month-old IPA. They don't want you drinking that because you're going to drink that and you go, gosh, these guys don't really make very good IPAs. Mm-hmm. That's because you didn't drink it fresh. Anyway, so what do you
Yeah, this one
on there?
it doesn't taste West Coasty to me.
Good.
It's got more malt than a West Coast. It's got a good hop flavor, not a really strong hop aroma, but it's got a decent amount of malt to it there.
It does, and
It's very good. I like it.
That's great, and it's on the high end. I mean, your double IPAs start at 8.
Yeah,
and this is a 7.7.
Right.
I mean, it's right
So
there.
it's almost double.
Yeah. Yes, anything over 6.2, 6.5 is an IPA. Then under that's your pale ale. Right?
Yeah.
But 7.7.
Yeah, it's getting up in the top of the range. But anyway, well done, Stone. Keep them coming. All right. So what in the heck is a digital panopticon?
Isn't that an interesting term? Is this fun to say?
Yeah. Digital
yes.
panopticon. Yeah. It's
Digital
like
panopticon.
it's like saying supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yes, it's a little bit of work to say, but it does kind of make you wonder what is going on here.
Yeah.
So, our buddy Stephen West at Philosophize This.
Yes.
Great. If you just want a straight up philosophy podcast, that is your go-to.
It's pretty good.
And so, I'm listening to this Panopticon show, and it goes back to Jeremy Bentham.
Which, by the way, there's some connection, which I can't remember exactly, between the TV show Lost and Jeremy Bentham. Yeah. So look it up, folks.
And he's an Enlightenment guy.
Yeah.
Right? This is the age of reason, and rationale is going to solve all things.
Yeah.
And so he was thinking about the penal system.
Yeah.
Because really, prisons, jail sentences are relatively new. There wasn't, right? It's not, because it wasn't like you were in the stockade, you were hung, or you got lashes.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't have the time and the resources to stick a person and feed them.
It's kind of a dumb. It's kind of a dumb concept.
It is. It's a very. People think that's because you see jails all the time. That's just a holding cell till they figure out what to do with you.
Yeah.
Look throughout history. But the idea that your punishment is a certain number of years in a jail is a very contemporary idea.
Yeah, and I think it's a stupid idea. Generally speaking, there are situations where it ought to be done, of course, but yeah, I mean, some people
would you want to bring back some caning and lashing?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, there are certain things.
Actually, I don't know. Ask a guy. Do you want 25 lashes and permanent scars, or 2 years in jail?
Right.
They'll take it.
Yeah, I think there are situations where a good beating would actually be a whole lot more effective than
they beat some sense into somebody.
Yeah, well, also a big problem with jail is it's basically a school to be a better prisoner, or a better thief, or a better criminal.
Yes, you're hanging out with criminals and you're getting ideas,
and
you're working out.
Oh, look, this is why you got caught, you idiot. You should have done.
Yeah. Oh, you know how to get around that alarm?
Right. And if you want to survive in prison, you got to join our gang.
I know.
And the whole concept needs some rethinking.
So Jeremy was looking at it, going, what's going on here is we're just sort of beating people into submission.
Yeah.
And why don't we start with the architecture of the building?
Yeah. The basic idea.
So this is the pan, right, which means circular.
Right.
Optical is vision, right? So
you can see everything is the idea. So his concept was that you want the prisoners to self-regulate rather than you to have to regulate them by knocking their heads around, right?
Yeah.
And the what's going to encourage them to self-regulate is the fact that you're watching them, because that is a classic way to control people. Is when your boss is watching, you behave differently. When mom is watching, you behave differently. When God is watching, you behave differently. Right?
So architecturally, how would you set this up?
Yeah. So his idea was you make a circular prison with the cells around the outside, and then like a guard tower in the middle that can look in all directions. But the trick would be that they don't know if you're looking at them or not. It's almost like I'm not sure they had two-way mirrors back in his day.
Exactly. It's like an 18th century version of a two-way mirror. Like they have slats in the viewing thing. So you assume that you're being watched all the time. Everybody thinks they're being watched all the time, and that like you said, self-regulating. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, and if you look at, I was looking for panopticon images. Yeah. And it's like basically what most prisons look like.
A lot of prisons do look like that.
A central tower with a console, and you can see all things at once. Now they don't.
Nowadays they just have cameras.
They don't have. Yeah, but the design is quite frequently the panopticon. But so then this idea was used as a metaphor.
Yeah.
By our good friend Foucault.
Foucault, yeah.
Who. His stuff on crime and punishment is more palatable than some of his other stuff.
Oh, I know, yeah.
I know what he's saying, and he's not wrong.
He's saying that it's not just for prisons, but it's actually a blueprint for all modern institutions. Yeah. That everything, schools, hospitals, military barracks, everything has the same internalized logic, which is when you're being watched, when... that you want people to be self-regulated and not have to be regulated only by eye service. That somebody's looking at you. Now you're going to do as you're told.
Yeah, it's so much more effective. But he was looking at power structures. Right. So for him, everything came down to power structures, and he's not entirely wrong. Mm-hmm. And so, how does one enforce behavior? Right? How do you get people to act right?
Yeah. And you want them to be self-motivated to act right.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yes, right. Everything can't be under the threat of punishment. You set up systems where, yes, you're self-correcting and you are assuming that you are being watched.
Now, here's where I had a little bit of a question. I listened to that podcast from our philosophized friend walking around the park, and when I got to that part about everybody's going to behave differently when they're being watched, and I stopped and I thought, like maybe 95 or 6% of people, isn't there like a number of people who, even if they're being watched, they're just going to, they're going to cause trouble anyway? And aren't there some people who, despite the fact that they're being watched, they know they're going to get punished, they're still going to do what what they want to do?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not a solution, and this is kind of a modern fallacy.
And it's not that there is some overlord who has designed this. Mm-hmm. It is the sort of the evolution of power structures that is resulted in. Now, he's not saying that nobody, we would be better off, that this is all pure oppression and there's no place for systems or government or, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's just saying this is how things work, and not that we need to tear it up root and stem.
Yeah.
It's just
Anyway, that's only a minor. My objection about even some people, even if they know they're being watched, aren't going to behave. That's just a minor objection. It just occurred to me though. There are some people who are so like ornery. They've got something that doesn't click quite right in their brain. Even if they know they're being watched and they're going to get punished, they'll do it anyway. But most people are controlled. Yes.
All right. I was going to save this, but you kind of brought up. Mm-hmm. I like a high trust, high functioning society, right? Yeah. That we got to play by the same rules and share common values. Yeah. A certain level of conformity is required, but Foucault is not wrong to ask, what happens to your freedom?
Yeah.
And what is your identity? Is your identity just fulfilling your role? I fulfill my role as a parent, and then I get in the car and I fulfill my role as an employee, and I fulfill my role as a good citizen, and I fulfill, right. So, where are you freely this you? And I think we've seen this, and I've been sympathetic to some really terrible characters in Notes from Underground by Dostoevsky, by Meursault in The Stranger.
Right.
Like, I have a certain sympathy for these rebellious outcasts who are going, I have to be more than just.
Right.
But I mean, what decisions am I making? Is there a central me, or am I just what the different institutions have defined for me? I mean,
that's right. Yeah, the country singer sings, "I can't just be what you want me to be." So yes, there's a certain level at which people want to assert some amount of individuality.
Yes, so that's what made me think of what you were saying. Like sometimes, you're being naughty, and it kind of feels good, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, and then there are people who go all in. They're like, yes, I'm an outcast. I'm an outlaw. Yeah. I don't fit into polite society.
Sure.
And I know that. And then Foucault was like, and society is going to make it very difficult for you to live your life the way that you want to live it, because we need you to participate properly. And those people who say, I don't care about that, they're like, you know what? It's probably going to cost me some jail time. I might end up in a mental institution.
Yeah.
I might be homeless, but guess what? I'm freer than all you SOBs.
It's a Johnny Depp kind of a character.
Yeah, maybe you're, right. And so, that sort of rebelliousness.
Yeah.
Yes, you said exactly. Yes, there's a certain percentage of that, and I have a certain respect and sympathy for that character.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Hey everybody, thanks for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill.
If you like the show, please review, recommend, tell a friend.
If you'd like to write to us at pigweedshow@gmail.com.
And if there's something you'd like to hear us discuss, please let us know, or you can just send us a beer. All right, well, I want to come back to Jean Genet.
Okay.
With that in mind at some point when we get time.
So
go ahead.
Another thing that Foucault brought out that was kind of interesting was the people in power determine what knowledge is and what normal is. I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, because think about it right now. like with the COVID thing. Well, true knowledge is no, the virus did not leak out of the lab, right? And if you don't think that, that's you're spreading disinformation, malinformation, all that kind of
and
stuff.
if you're not vaccinated, you're killing your fellow citizens.
You're killing grandma. Right, yeah. So this idea of the people in power control what knowledge
that's great.
is.
The COVID example is perfect.
Yeah. Now they also control what normal means to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that either of these things are absolutely wrong. They can be overdone. But for example,
but he's right to point it out.
Yes.
He's right to isolate the.
He is right to point it out. So normal, for example, how about like wearing clothes in public or other? That's what normal is wearing clothes in public. And there are ways in which society has to define those kinds of things, and put limits on what's acceptable to say or believe. Is it okay to believe that the moon landing was fake? Well, no, you're a nut if you believe the moon landing was fake. So there is a sense in which the power structures tell us what is knowledge and what is normal, and that's part of the way they exercise power over us.
Right. Yeah. Right. But again, it's not a centralized big brother. Mm-hmm. It's just how the system itself works and operates.
Well, it can be both, but it can be both to some extent. Like the culture as a whole tells you these things,
right? But Big Brother comes with the digital. I guess you didn't know we were going to go to the digital panopticon, but are we?
Yeah, I think it's time to get into the digital side of this because like this.
So you got Jeremy Bentham talking about the actual structure of a prison.
Right.
You have in 1975 French. Postmodernist philosopher uses that as a metaphor for how society and power works.
Yeah.
And then here we are in the digital age, and who's our Stephen Cave?
Yeah, Stephen Cave. Yeah, and he's saying, look, this is what's going on right now, and one of the things that
in this, I remember after 9/11, like a year after 9/11 and Homeland Security and everything, my favorite bumper sticker was "One Nation Under Surveillance," and I was like, "Yeah, kind of." And that was how long has it been? 25 years ago.
Right. It's pretty amazing right now.
The level of surveillance
is unbelievable. In England is even worse. Like apparently in England, you have the expectation that from the time you leave your house, you are being recorded constantly.
Yes.
Now, it's not that bad in America yet.
No, but you can get right. You get in, you get on the, what do they call it, the tube, go to work, go shopping,
walking around on the street, you're being recorded.
All the way to your front door.
Yeah.
And they can trace.
You're being watched all the time. And crime shows make it seem that way. Police shows make it seem like they can tap into this camera,
but I tell you
that camera,
and if you watch as much true crime as I do, and you see how many crimes are solved as a result, then you go, "Yay, surveillance!"
Right? Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that's the sort of environment that we've created. That yay, surveillance! Surveillance is the best.
But what is the consequence? What's the moral, emotional consequence of believing that you're under surveillance all the time is you're going to conform. You're going to self-censor.
Yeah.
You're only going to say certain things. You're only going to do certain things because you know that you're being watched and you're being judged by this.
Did you listen to the episode after that one?
No.
Well, this one, he says there's a philosopher who took it to the nth degree and said, what if you're in, he says, there are people who would opt in to this system where you're big brothered, everything is recorded all of the time, everywhere. Because think about this, there's very little crime, except for crimes of passion.
Right.
There's no corruption. There's sneaky backdoor dealings. There's nothing going on backdoor because there is no backdoor. Everything, everywhere is being recorded, and these are the benefits. Boom, 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 right? Hey, it's very safe.
Yeah.
We don't worried about a police state. You barely need police.
Right.
Everybody.
So the argument for that is, why do you need time? Why do you need time away from the camera?
Yeah.
What is it you're doing?
What are you doing?
Why do you need to be away from the camera? So
If you weren't up to something,
exactly.
This is the Kyle Schwab's of the WEF.
Yes.
He's like, in the future, everything will be transparent, and you will own nothing, and you will like it.
And Kyle Schwab was recently found to have been corrupt as everybody else. Yeah. But anyway, so why do we need time away from surveillance?
Because you're a bunch of creeps and pervs? Is that it?
No, the real reason that we need time away from surveillance is we can't trust the people who are surveilling us. So, like, if you're being surveilled by God, and so, that where you realize that every single thing you do is going to be judged by God, well, he's going to be fair about it, right? But if you're thinking everything that I do is going to be judged by some committee...
By the WEF.
Yeah. By some committee of busybodies,
Your HOA.
Who run the HOA, exactly. Or who want to be in student government. And, those people, like... The problem is not that everything in your life needs to be morally scrutinized, because it does. The problem is we can't come up with any group of people who have the standing to do that scrutiny.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the idea of having the ministry of truth. It's like, look, there's so much disinformation out there. We need a committee. Of who?
Yeah, right. Who's going to do that? Right, exactly. So the problem, there are so many situations where someone will say, why do you care if the government... It's not the government in some abstract sense. It's some particular guy who works for the government who looks into the records and says, oh, this guy owns a blah, blah, blah. I guess I can tell my friend to break into his house and steal that. The problem is that when people have access to that kind of information, they abuse it. They use it to look up information on their ex. They use it to spy on their spouse. They use it to, get vengeance on a person who did something wrong to them. People can't be trusted with that kind of information because they're going to do bad things with it.
Yeah. So let me get back to Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
I butchered that.
You
Sorry
did.
about that.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So people say this Ben Franklin quote, and first off, I was like, it doesn't even make any sense because give up freedom for security.
We do that all the time.
Yes, as soon as you remember when you signed the social contract as a child.
I think I was like 6 months old, and I signed it with my big toe. Yeah.
No, but as you become part of society, you enter into a social contract, and you don't know it, and you don't sign it, and you can't opt out of it. But it implies that you can't just do anything that you want. So you've already lost your freedom. So this quote is dumb. So I said, well, what's the real quote?
Yeah.
All right, this is the real quote. So hold on. This is the non quote is the man who would give up freedom for security deserves neither. All right, sounds kind of like a real good anti-surveillance.
Which makes no sense if you think about it for more than a minute.
Yes, right. For a minute. All right. So after a minute, Ben said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And it had nothing to do with security. This was like a tax issue between the Penn family and not wanting to pay their taxes to pay the defense against the Indians. So it's out of context and completely misquoted most of the time. But the freedom versus security issue is unresolvable.
Yes,
and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's something that needs to be argued about all the time.
It's one of these things that you're always dealing with. Like when I leave the house and I get in my car, I give up a certain amount of freedom. I have to drive on the right side of the road. I have to go a certain speed. I have to stop.
You're being controlled by the man. I'm not being,
right.
I just drive any way I want.
I have to stop at those octagonal red signs. Like there are certain things that I give up some freedom because that's the way it is. However, there is this constant balance between freedom and security, because if like there was a computer in my car that recorded absolutely everything that I did and then fed that to my car insurance company, I might say, well, I'm not quite with this.
Every time that you look down at your phone to change the podcast that you're listening to.
Right.
All right, so that was 4 seconds that he was
that
not
you weren't paying attention.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. And this aggregates up to,
that's right.
You're an unworthy driver or whatever.
Yeah. So there is that constant tension between freedom and security, and the real problem is that they want to pretend that angels are the people who are looking at all this information and acting in your best interest.
I'm tired of taking my shoes off at the airport. Do you know what? You know where you don't take your shoes off? Israel.
Oh.
We had one jerk who tried to light his shoe on fire. And now we all have to take the
because it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with
8 million
security.
people a day have to take their shoes off because this one idiot.
It's not security. It's security theater.
Yes.
It's really just. Remember, in the end of 1984. In the end of 1984, they ask, "Why are you doing all this?"
Yeah.
And he says, "Because we can." I mean, that's kind of the answer. Is they do all this just to give you this illusion of security. Anyway, we're getting a little outside the topic here. One of the things that came up in that podcast that I really liked was the question whether the most intelligent people should rule.
Yes. So we always go back to the big three Greeks who sort of set philosophy in motion. Mm-hmm. And then Plato decides, look, I'll tell you how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Right? The
Put
Republic.
The smartest guy in charge.
The philosopher king.
Yeah.
And, I have had my sympathies with the philosopher king, well, when I was younger, going, yes, well, you know how dumb your average voter is?
How dumb your average senator is, for that matter. But
for that matter, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Can't we just get a benevolent, smart guy?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
And let him run the show. Yeah. And this is what Plato had in mind. So, so on with your intelligence quotient.
Yeah,
business.
Yeah. So the problem with this is, what did the really intelligent person have to do to attain the status of being a really intelligent person?
Yeah.
Okay, they had to study well. They had to answer things well on tests. They had to do. Okay, what's the old model of coming up with a leader?
You mean the smartest guy before you had to take a test to prove that you were the smartest guy?
No. I mean, like in reality.
Yeah.
Who was the leader of like a tribe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he just naturally exhibited the qualities that nobody wrote down and said, you need to have these qualities.
So
everybody just looked at him and went, that's the guy.
Yes, because he was a good warrior.
Yeah.
He made good alliances.
He was fair.
He made good judgments.
Yes. He was brave.
He was brave. So he had a bunch of qualities that made him the leader. Now, somebody's going to come along and say, no, this goofy egghead in the corner who knows a lot is going to do better than this person who has demonstrated the ability to make agreements, to compromise, to negotiate, to form alliances, to be strong. So this concept that we should be ruled by intelligent people is a very modern and not really a very smart concept. That I'm not sure just because somebody is smart, that means that they know how to rule.
Yeah. I mean, right. I mean, you're the guy who's running a successful farm is probably more qualified than most senators.
Exactly, because he's had to negotiate, he's had to do various kinds of things. He's had to deal with the farmhand who won't get up on time and milk the cows. He's had to deal with stuff where the intelligent person is just, if I make this rule, that will solve this problem.
So right, so at some point we came up with the intelligent quotient.
Yeah.
Right. Which, I mean, it's fair in its own way.
It's fair to try to measure things, yeah.
But then we have a new, Stephen has come up with a new quotient.
Yes, the freedom quotient, which I thought was pretty interesting. He was talking about there's an intelligence quotient, there's an emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
His was the freedom quotient. And he said, well, let's break freedom down into 3 components. The first is the ability to generate options, right? If you don't have many options, then freedom doesn't make any sense. So the first part of it is that you have the ability to have multiple options. The second one is that you can choose between those options. And the third one is that once you've chosen an option, you can actually pursue that option.
Right.
And if any of those are lacking, then you're really not free. So a freedom quotient could be some sort of a mathematical calculation about, well, how many options did you have?
But didn't this come up in terms of like determining criminal guilt?
Absolutely.
Or something like that, right?
Because if you're looking at somebody who is in a situation where they really didn't practically have any option except this one. Well, how can you blame them for going that way if that was their only...
As opposed to the person who had multiple options and chose that one.
Exactly.
So if you measured those 2 guys should not be judged the same because they both made the same choice, but shouldn't be judged equally.
Yes. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the person who had no options gets a free pass.
No.
It just means that they're not judged as harshly as the person who had multiple options and chose the really stupid thing, right? So... I think that's a pretty interesting concept, and it's used informally in courts all the time. That's the way judges determine sentences and things like that. But
this quantifies it. In a way.
The idea is, wouldn't it be interesting to come up with a way to quantify it, where you can say his freedom quotient was 3, and this guy's freedom quotient was 8,
in the way that we do IQ.
Right. Yeah. But the whole concept of the intelligent quotient kind of goes back to this idea that, let's go back to what Foucault was saying, that the people in power determine what knowledge is and what normal is, right? And then we have this intelligence quotient where we assign somebody a point value and we say, oh, okay, you have an IQ of 145, therefore you should be in charge. Right. Because the smart people should be in charge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I'm of 2 minds on that because basically, yes, but not too heavy-handedly.
Yeah.
Is that fair enough?
Well, I obviously I don't want idiots in charge.
Exactly. Well, speaking of idiots, this does go back to the eugenics issue.
Yes.
And idiot, by the way, yes, I know you call your friends idiots and imbeciles and morons just for fun. But these were actually categories.
I know.
In the data. These are legitimate categories.
And if you were to rank them, you would get them wrong.
Yes, you know what? Actually, the idiot is the smartest of the 3. So, he still is, can barely put his pants on. But anyway, so yes, so it was this kind of intelligence ranking was used by the eugenics system to determine who's allowed to breed. Who should be sterilized?
Right.
So, I don't think that's going a little too far, but I don't know. I mean, as a society, who do you want more of?
But that's
the Elon Musk who's spreading his genes all over the place.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. And then you've got these illiterate welfare morons. How many children do you want them having?
See, that's a perfect illustration of why we don't want the intelligent people running things, because that makes perfect sense to them. They'll say something like,
and then they start rounding up and castrating people.
Yes, exactly. We start saying, these are the people who have the right ideas. We're going to let them breed. And these people who have the wrong ideas. We're not going to let them breed. And the truth of the matter is that you really can't predict whether an intelligent... You have 2 stupid people have a kid, and they might have a really brilliant kid.
Well, you know what? The guy who shot the CEO...
Yeah.
I bet he has a high IQ.
Probably. I know. That's right.
Hey, I mean, he went to fancy schools and, from good family and all. So, doesn't mean you produce good citizens.
So one thing we haven't quite addressed yet is this whole question of the digital surveillance. And we all know that we're being surveilled constantly. And I'm
Yeah, we limited it to the cameras, but
Yeah.
you're talking about your online activity.
oh, there's everything. We're being
gosh.
surveilled in so many different ways. And I don't want to get too deeply into the technology of that, but I want to divide it into three categories. Well, two categories and then one I'm going to split into. So the two categories are government versus private.
Yeah.
And then in government, it's your government versus somebody else's government. Okay? So we know that we're being surveilled constantly. Like Amazon is tracking everything we do. Apple is tracking everything we do. Google is tracking everything we do. Right?
And
Facebook, Meta, those guys.
Right, and we have all of these fancy algorithms, but AI is going to take this to a new level. So.
Very, very true.
Go ahead.
So we have these private firms who are tracking us, and their goal is mostly to sell us more soap. You know, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then
in a lot of ways, I'm going. Yeah, I saw that you bought these 4 albums. You might be interested in this. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, you're kind of right.
Right.
Right. So I mean, it's kind of nice. We like it.
In some ways, it's good. And then you have the government surveilling you, and then if it's your own government, that presents one level of concern.
Sure.
But then if it's the Chinese government,
Right. Good point.
surveilling you, that presents a different level of concern, right? So I think in this digital panopticon that we live in now, we need to think of those 3 options: my government, China, or a private company. Which one do we want having access to that data?
Yeah.
And then another layer on top of that is when there's a partnership between one of those 3, and the partnerships go multiple ways. The U.S. government partnered with Meta and Twitter and everybody else to suppress free speech.
Yeah.
And when Meta tries to go into China, then China says, okay, if you're going to be here,
Access
you have
to
to
our market requires
you have to do X, Y, and Z. So there is a collusion between these 3 groups, but it's the kind of question we have to ask. Who do we want? Somebody is going to have this data. Who do we want to have it, and under what terms?
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that we're walking around with these devices that are tracking our every movement, that are probably listening to us, even though we're told that they're not. And we're just like, yeah, but the trade-off...
Yeah, the trade-off is I get these benefits.
Okay, I don't like it, but, well, what are you going to do, right? I mean, we just go, it's the security and the privacy, and it can... right, the third factor in there is the convenience. It's like, yeah, I know, but I know they're tracking me everywhere, but I can also find out the best route home.
Yeah.
And you know exactly where home is, and you know exactly where work is, because I've programmed it in there, and I've given you every access.
And you know where everybody else between me and home is.
Yes, because that's how you get the traffic data.
That's right.
And yeah, that's probably too much, but gosh, so convenient.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think the Achilles heel here is the convenience. You just can't beat it, and people you want to give up. Yeah, right. That needs to be the third thing. It's like, how much freedom are you willing to give up for security? Or versus convenience.
Right.
It's like a third level of how much freedom you're willing to give up.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna make this whole thing really difficult. Okay, so we've got Bentham with his concept of how to do a prison.
Right.
And then we've got Foucault saying, well, the same concept really applies to all these other power systems.
Yes.
And then we've got modern digital surveillance, where we realize we're being surveilled in ways we can't even contemplate.
But we're kind of okay with it.
Yeah. So now the question is, are we in a prison?
Yeah. Well, I mean, does it feel like it? Not really.
No.
Right?
I mean, I don't feel like I'm in a prison.
But wouldn't the overlords... Isn't that exactly the way that they would design it?
Isn't that what they would want you to think?
I'm free to do whatever.
That's right.
And I'm free to make all of my choices, and not realizing that they have defined for you what these choices will be, because we've limited your access to these things. And so, sure, you've got a choice between all of these various shoes. And whatever.
It's kind of like the guy sitting in his prison cell thinking, I am prevented from going out every place else. But then saying, but you know what? Everybody else is prevented from coming in here.
Maybe I'm in charge.
Right. So I think we have to think a little more clearly about to what extent we're going to allow this constant surveillance to restrict us and regulate us and control us. Mm-hmm. Because that's what they're doing. Private companies are doing it a certain way, governments are doing it a certain way. And we are unquestionably in this digital panopticon.
Right. And in the Foucaultian way, are willingly participating.
Yes.
That's the secret. That's what even Jeremy Bentham was just like, you can't just go beating people into submission. Let's find another way. And how about this? They willingly accept and then are excited about.
They go out and stand in line to buy the next version of the thing that's going
to oppress them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That's the trick there.
It is. It's amazing. Get people to want to be in the prison that you're going to create for them. Mm. Yeah. All right. So here we are in the digital panopticon.
Yes, we are, and we're pretending that we're not.
And nobody made us drink this beer, as far as I know.
Yeah. As far as you know, I don't know. You probably got a little teaser on an app somewhere, and then went out and bought it and think I'm a free-thinking, drinking man.
There we go. Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.